Brian, welcome to Rock's blog. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I very much appreciate it.
No worries. So we're here to talk about your feature film, The Nanny.
Yep.
So
Uh,
kick things off. How did you get into filmmaking? What's your background?
well, I started writing stories when I was a kid. I've always enjoyed writing stories. And then when I was in high school, I joined a Shakespeare group that was part of the high school. And I very quickly started doing professional theater outside of school. I was in theater for a long, long time, but I always had friends who would be grabbing a camera and being like, hey, come on, we're going to go to the park and shoot a short film, things like that. And I was always interested, obviously, as an actor, I was always interested in being in film, and I was still writing. And then my wife and I started writing screenplays together, and I really became interested in that. I'd always loved movies as an audience member. And then a while ago, I was like, you know what? I had a friend who was releasing an album. They said, will you shoot a music video? So I got a chance to direct a music video, then started doing short films, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been a lifelong process of getting to this space where I'm, making features. I still do theater. I was in a show that I wrote over the summer of 22. I wrote a play that was produced in 2019, but now film is my focus for sure.
Beautiful. How do you feel that your sort of experience in life in theatre leads into the filmmaking?
Well, I definitely know how to support actors. My big thing, because theater is very much a wind up the show, like put all your time and effort and energy into the show, and then you have to let go of it and just watch it trundle off, take its first steps, and hopefully not fall down too much. It's very much, I very much come to any sort of production, whether it's theater or film, with the idea of my job is to support the cast and crew in terms of helping them, you know, do their best work. And so for theater, especially actors, and knowing what they need to succeed, it's a lot. It's both harder and easier in film because if someone has a bad performance or something, a bird flies into the shot or whatever, you can yell cut and reset and go back. Theater is much more of a live wire act of
Yeah.
you just got to go. But at the same time, I think there's something very challenging for actors when it comes to film, in that a lot of times the focus is not them. You're focused on, okay, the camera's bumping into this wall. Well, how are we going to get this shot? Or, oh, set has to come in and redress this area because we've got the wrong day, there's the wrong Afghans on the couch or whatever. So I think actors can be pretty challenged, and they're putting their heart and soul into the work, and sometimes they're not the focus. So I'd say theater really gave me this idea of, one, how collaborative creating something is. There's, the more voices that you can bring in to your work, I think the better. Because I think more audience responds to it more. And also, knowing how people need to be supported so that they can provide their best work.
Yeah. Beautiful. So talking about actors, I know we've spoken about I know in a written interview. What about the other two? I mean, the three of them are just amazingly wonderful and villainous and, vile. So yeah, how did you come to be working with the other two?
Yeah, so Adam Kitchen, who I love, I just love working with him. I actually did a short film called Origin of a Hero, and he auditioned for that, which is how I met Adam, and he absolutely just did an amazing job in that short film. And then, we kept in touch during the pandemic. I sort of really tried to keep in touch with everybody in my community of like, how are you doing? What's going on? Where are you living? That kind of thing. And so when it came time to cast the nanny, I really wanted someone for the role of Brendan, the husband, who could play, gosh, just toxic,
Yeah.
but you still somehow kind of like him, and you somehow kind of like, root for him. And I think that's so challenging for an actor to be somebody who's like the audience loves to hate, but also kind of likes a little bit. And especially because we were in the middle of the pandemic, I didn't want to do a lot of auditions. I did want to cast from people that I knew. And so Adam was the obvious choice for me in terms of playing Brendan. And I think he did such an amazing job. He had some really, I feel, challenging things as an actor where he had to sort of declaim a lot of stuff, to keep the plot moving along, or keep the scenes moving along. And he did such a great job of making that interesting, which I think is really challenging. And then Angela Sauer, who was again auditioned for my play in 2019 and played, sort of my favorite character from that play. Just had a blast working with her in the theater. So I needed someone who I really, again, I felt you could be like super just like in your face and very, very dominating and very, sort of prickly. But at the same time,
Likeable.
can we root for the, like, because if you can't, I like to write characters where you're rooting for them. And I think there's definitely a place for just pure villain.
Mhm.
But I think that's just like so rare and has to be so specific. And I really do want characters for the most part where it's like, God, this person is such a pain in the butt. But I kind of, I could hang out with them, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So and then my friend Phil Abrams, who has been my acting coach for a long, long time, and then has come in on done a bunch of stuff with me. He was in my first short film. He's always sort of like somehow involved in my creative work. He's always part of my table reads. I said, hey, I need you to play the lawyer, and he came on as a favor because he works so much, and especially during that time, he was really having to take whatever sort of big jobs he could, but he carved out time for us. And I talk about a thankless role, like just this lawyer. Again, a lot of laying the groundwork so the audience can understand what's going on in the film and the stakes and the isolation and all that stuff. And he just was such a professional, came in and knocked it out so hard. And then finally, Hayes. Hayes was the one role for the sheriff that we.
Oh, well, poor sheriff.
I know. I love that character so much. Not because of who the character is as a person, but just because of what the character does for the film. Hayes was our only audition. We went through a lot of self tapes. My producer Kimberly Connolly did an amazing job of giving us a lot of choices, and it was very difficult. But Hayes had this certain something, and he's got this one line. I won't say it because I don't want to spoil the film, but he's got this one line, and I actually ruined his first take because he said it, and I just started laughing so hard. I ruined sound. We had to cut. We couldn't. Then everyone started laughing. I basically shut down the set for about 5 minutes because I was laughing so hard. I just think he's a really talented actor. So, especially with such a small cast, and for the most part, the three main characters never leave the scene. They're stuck together, which is sort of the whole point of it. Is they're trapped in each other's personal space. For Angela and Adam and Georgia, not only being amazing at their craft of acting, but also really just awesome to work with, and we were just isolated. And so, it was just amazing to work with them. And yeah, they gave me everything I could possibly want. And we did a lot of rehearsal, but they came so prepared. So set was really, it was really fluid and flowing in terms of the performances.
And it was a long shoot, wasn't it? So you were all together, was it 21 days?
Yeah, we only had 17 days of shooting, which was
You say
definitely,
only. That's a privilege to most.
yeah, for sure. I mean, for a small independent film like ours, it definitely was a luxury in terms of how many shooting days we had in the house location. We did have one day of shooting in the on the side of the road, and one day of drone footage in the mountains. But for the most part, it was 17 days. Yeah, we had to average a lot of pages per day to get my husky's lonely.
Did you
She's
sing it?
wanting attention. Yeah, we had to average over 9 pages a day to get the shoot. And that was really challenging in a lot of ways. I think that the preparation that the camera department brought to it, and the rest of the crew, and then the preparation that the actors brought to it, being ready, knowing what was going on in every scene, their performances were right there. We were able to get the coverage we needed very, very quickly. I definitely, we talk about it as a production company. It's like, okay, on the next film, can we average 6 pages a day or 5 pages a day? Can we slow down a little bit? But yeah, it was wonderful to have that time. And the other thing is, once we loaded into our location, we didn't leave for 21 days. So it
Tense.
wasn't like we had to, unload the truck every morning. We would literally just be like, hey, where'd we leave the camera? we go walk into the bedroom and be like, oh, here it is. And we, move it to where we needed it. So that was good, because it really did save us a lot of time every day in terms of load in and load out. There was one weird night where we were doing overnight, so it was like 5 in the morning, and I hadn't slept because I'd had to drive to LA and during the day, and I was just trying to stay awake. And I said to my DP, I said, the moment you tell me we're wrapped for the night, I'm done.
Yeah.
And we got to the last shot. I said, that was a good take. He's like, yeah, we're done. I'm like, we're done. We're done. We're done. And he's like, yeah, we're done. And I literally walked from the living room into the bedroom. It was like 30 feet. And I was asleep like 30 seconds after shooting a movie. It was so surreal, because I was like, I'm on set and I'm directing, and everyone's looking at me, and we're, there's all these people working really hard, and it's like we're wrapped, and I'm just like, goosh, I was
But then the
done.
adrenaline just goes, doesn't it?
Oh, it was just, yeah, exactly. It was pretty wild. So
And you're incredibly meticulous in your planning, your storyboarding, everything. So how did that then work on set? Because you had so many pages, like, yeah, it's amazing practice to put into place.
thank you. Yeah. So especially with a thriller, I really wanted to, make sure that everything made sense. We at one point, I had a bunch of graph paper up on my hallway, and I charted everything out, and then, put all the plot points in, and I tried to find anything that didn't make sense, or like, oh, would that really happen? Or, oh, wait a minute, that person can't be in this location. And then once we moved into pre-production, I we actually scanned the entire location into virtual space. We used LiDAR, scanned it. A company made us a digital model. down to a 16th of an inch. And then we measured all the actors. So we dropped the actors into virtual space at their exact height. I said, put on the shoes. Morgan sent them, Morgan also did the costumes, sent them the shoes. I'm like, measure again with the shoes. And that allowed me to solve a lot. There's the old saying, solve it in post. There's also the saying, solve it in pre. So we tried to solve as much as we could in pre. There was one moment where I'm like, oh, I want to swing the camera here, and then I can get this angle. And I realized I had literally put the camera through a wall. And I was like, okay, we're not going to swing the camera that way. And so because we were able to visually video storyboard, because I can't really, me personally, I can't plug into those sort of traditional storyboards where it's a still frame, a still frame, a still frame. For me, I can't translate that in my head into what the shot's going to look like or how we're going to get it. So to be able to create video storyboards, and every time I'd finish storyboarding a scene, I would send a QuickTime file to my cinematographer. And I'd actually send him two QuickTime files, one of what the camera would see, and then the other a top-down sort of dollhouse shot of all of the camera angles and all the camera movement. And then he would send back all his notes. So by the time we reached the set, we basically had our entire shot list planned out, and we had all seen the movie in virtual space. We'd seen every scene, tracking it. And then Travis Dixon, our amazing AD and editor, which was really great to have the editor on set, would be like, hey, you don't have coverage of this, and I'm not going to be able to cut into this, or I'm not going to be able to cut out of this. There's going to be a continuity problem. And so then just little pickups here and there, or even whole new shots, so that he could really get the edit into the camera, made a big difference. So yeah, I am so terrified when I go on set. I don't want to be the reason that something goes wrong. So for me, you
get all
can't,
your ducks in order.
yeah, you can't prepare enough. Like what can we think about? Like I would literally walk through the house in my head, not about the shots, but like, hey, when we're shooting on this day, where are we going to put Crafty? Like, because like otherwise, lunch is in the shot suddenly. So yeah, tons of preparation, and the entire crew, even our PAs, we had amazing PAs. Even our PAs were looped in to the pre-production process. And so that allowed everyone to like say, hey, I see a potential problem, and then, collectively find a solution. Once in a while I'd play the I'm the director, so I say what I say goes card, but not very often. I had a very amazing crew, a very experienced and skilled crew. So a lot of times their solution was the best one, and it was easy. It was like, hey, I'd be like, hey, I have a problem, and sound would go, oh, that's not a problem, we'll just do this. I'm like, okay, cool, problem solved.
So going back to what you were talking about earlier, this is something I wanted to ask you, and obviously don't give anything away, but with a thriller and, something such as The Nanny, you've got everything that builds up to this, culminative end. So how in the writing were you able to keep track of all of that?
Yeah, so I wrote this so quickly, and I just sort of knew what was happening for every single person in that time frame. So for the big, I'm a huge fan of like really strong dynamic endings. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical, it can be mental, but I really like strong dynamic endings. When I wrote the ending, I was pretty clear on what everybody wanted, what their tactics they were going to use when they hit obstacles, how they were going to adjust to new tactics. And I just had those three people in my head, and they were operating in space. And then when we did, the table read, well, first my wife Samantha McDouglas, she read it, and she's an amazing editor, an amazing screenwriter of her own, and she's like, this doesn't work, or no, 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 no. And she found some plot holes, and then we fixed those, and then we did a table read, which I always do. I'm addicted to table reads.
Mm.
um, Found more plot holes. So by the time the script was sort of finished, it was ready for pre-production, my knowing where every character was operating in that space, and then everyone putting their eyes on it and saying, hey, this doesn't work, and then storyboarding it and going, oh wait, for this location that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just became a thing where we were really able to construct a pretty ornate finale in terms of the moving parts. I got to give a shout out to my cinematographer, Michael Bowler. I love long shots. I just like, I'm always, my Morgan is always like, you can't have this many long shots. I'm like, I want this many long shots. And Michael, I mean, I watched him run up a hill. I watched him run backwards down a hill. I watched him, like, he was all, I was always like, I don't want to cut here. And he'd be like, cool, I'll make it work. I'll make it work. I mean, that, like, I feel like he should just wear a t-shirt that says, I'll make it work.
You need to make him one.
You know what? I'm going to do it right after I get
There you go.
this. But yeah, so it was like, it was me knowing what everybody wanted while I was writing it, and then everybody putting eyes on it and saying, does it work? Does it not work? And then, and my script supervisor on set, Jamie Hughes, did an amazing job of like asking me questions like, hey, is this phone in the shot? And I'd be like, yes, and here's why.
Yeah.
And so that gave us another backstop of like catching, oh no, the phone can't be here, or oh, that's the wrong phone, or so that helped. It was really a team effort, is what I'm trying to say.
And did you start with the ending? So you knew how you wanted it to end?
No, the ending, I wasn't the last thing we shot, but it was close.
Okay.
We did not shoot linearly. We definitely shot out of sequence because we shot all of our daytime stuff, and then switched over to all our overnights, all our nighttime stuff. So the ending was one of the was the final thing. I think it might have even been the final thing. I'd have to look at the schedule, but it was near the end. And it was definitely the one where we carved out the most amount of time. I was like, every other scene, especially anytime, two people are just sort of talking in a room, we really tried to like compress that time, because I really wanted to give the finale as much shooting time as we could. And our actors just killed it. I mean, they were asked to, really go to some emotionally challenging places just over and over and over again. And they just like every take was just them giving their all. So yeah. And then I think we shot something else the next day, but like the last day was like half shooting, half rap party, and it was super fun. But definitely
Find it all
so,
kind of blurs into one now.
yeah, it's definitely one of those things where while I was in it, I sort of knew the schedule. Like on day 3, I knew what day 14 was going to look like, because I had everything in my head. But now after post and everything else, I'm like, wait, when would
So what did you learn from this film, making the feature?
Whew, I learned so much. I was actually talking to our post-production coordinator, and I was like, God, I there's so much I would do so much better this
The
time.
beauty of hindsight.
Yeah, hindsight is amazing. This was the best version of film school I could have ever possibly hoped for. Um, I learned a lot more about what everyone does on a set, especially camera. After the shoot, I really took time to educate myself on, focal lengths and lenses and, ISO and all that stuff, which I had a sense of. And thank God for Michael, because I didn't have to worry about that too much, but just for my own education. Um, I definitely learned that I think the biggest thing I learned from the editing was like we had this whole sequence in the first act that we just didn't need. We did a rough cut screening and for some friends of mine who are filmmakers, and they all told me like, your first act is just way too long. Like, we get it, move on. And I had really wanted to like lay it out for the audience and okay, here's what's happening. And they were like, we got it, you can just move on. And so we cut a substantial portion out of the first act. And so as I'm getting ready for my next project, which is also a psychological thriller, there are sequences where I've literally gone, oh, the audience got it, I don't need this sequence, and cut it out and streamlining that.
Do you
I
find that
definitely,
hard, getting rid of
I'm
things?
sorry.
Do you find it hard getting rid of things?
No, if I if I want to get rid of something, I don't find it hard at all. If somebody says to me, "Hey, you need to lose this part," I'll be like, "Prove it." Like, I I I really like debate when it comes to my writing. If someone wants to talk to me about my writing, I want them to come at me passionately, because I'm going to come back at them passionately. So if somebody says to me, "Hey, in this edit or this script, you need to cut this sequence," I'll be like, "No, I don't. This is why I need it." Da, 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 da. And I want that other person to come back at me as hard as they can and prove to me that I'm wrong. Because to me, it's only through that level of passion and commitment and conflict that you can really sort of get a sense of, yeah, who is right about what's going to be best for the film. And so there were definitely things that were said at that rough cut screening that I was like, nope, I'm not going to listen to that. And let me tell you why. And we had amazing debate. I mean, to me, they're arguments. I don't shy away from arguments. I like arguments. They're not personal. They're two friends trying to make each other better. And probably like most of the stuff that the filmmaker said, I was like, I disagree, and I'm going to make the film I want to make. But some of the stuff they said was just like so critical to helping the film be better. So that's what I learned the most from the writing side. I definitely learned a lot about how I want to shoot a film in terms of how I want to use the camera. I do like one long takes. I will definitely keep those for my entire career. But I also found ways where I could do a little more cutting and a little more, coverage, where we're switching camera angles to help tell the story. So that's something I definitely learned.
Okay. Well, I've got time for one more question.
Great.
So, what are you working on now? What's the next project?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of scripts. I think it's over 11 now in my hard drive that are ready for pre-production, and they're all of various budget levels, for anywhere from, micro to big tent pole,
That's the way to
sci-fi.
do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the
Everything's
way to keep
arranged.
working.
Yeah, so my next project that we're focused on is called The Baleen. As I mentioned, it's a one location psych thriller. It's about three couples who belong to a cult. and they bring a fourth couple that they're trying to recruit to meet the guru. It's not a comedy. It's very it's very dark. It's very challenging in terms of the issues that I want to address, in terms of how cults destroy lives and destroy people. And then and then we're also trying to keep other projects in mind. I have one that is like sort of my dream to do next, which is called Kate Goes to a Party, which is about a theoretical physicist who has to go to like this gala that her benefactor is throwing, and the craziness that happens in that. That's definitely bigger budget. But so those are sort of the two that we're focused on. And then, I'm always writing. I'm writing a musical with a friend of mine. I'm, writing a couple other scripts. I'm shooting a short film probably in August. So yeah, just a lot of things. But the Baleen is the main one. That's the one we're focused on in terms of, getting funding, getting talent attached to it. I'm doing a rewrite right now, as I said, just to strip out some things and tighten up the script. So it's a very, streamlined, film.
Is it going to be a feature as well?
Yeah. It's right now it's about 100 pages. I think it's probably going to end up being like 85 to 90.
Okay.
But yeah, it is a feature. I love short films because I love I'll come up with crazy ideas and I'll be like, oh, and I'll write a script and I'll get to page 10 and I'll stop and I'll be like, oh, okay, it's a short film. Or I'll get to page 60 and I'll be like, oh, it's a fringe show. Or I'll get to page 170 and I'll be like, series? I don't know what this is like. This is massive.
War and Peace.
Yeah. So I just sort of let the writing go where the writing's going to go and then figure out what it is afterwards. But this one's definitely a feature. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, look, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. It was wonderful chatting with you.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you next week.
I can't wait to be there.